we've obviously just covered how things are going to get worse and worse and worse for society as a whole because we are suffering from
a brainworm,
the incompetency crisis, the skills crisis, which is being deliberately manufactured. But let's talk about something which is quite funny again. Let's go back onto the happy news, which is the contradictions in the woke coalition just can't last. We've covered this a few times, but it's important to constantly reaffirm the fact that the actual groups of people that make up the woke coalition, the intersectional coalition, are a complete hodgepodge of nonsense of people who can't coexist with one another for obvious and clear reasons, but have only been put together because they can essentially form a voting bloc.
It's nice to see the ties fraying, though, isn't it? Like
it is. It'll be interesting to see how the regime attempts to bring everything back together, because they will, and they are trying to, which is going to be the focus of this segment. Justin Trudeau's terrible attempts to bring the communities back together. But as I see it, it can't last for much longer, and it won't last for much longer. The only question for me is what happens afterwards. And on that subject, we've got a new article on the website that was released 2 days ago called Political Homelessness by John Tangney, where he's examining the state of Europe primarily, and the fact that a lot of people are politically homeless and the prospects for those people in the future, now that a lot of the parties are revealing themselves to be completely traitorous to them. Because we've got it in Europe where we had the rise of the far right. We even covered it a little bit. The rise of the far right, who then come in and then do leftist politics.
Yeah.
The same as they always do, because you cannot trust these people. But one of the biggest blocks of the woke coalition has always been the Muslim groups. Always been the Muslims being brought into the country and asked to vote left, which you would think wouldn't come as natural to them as it does, primarily because a lot of them tend to have more socially conservative views, especially the way that we critique the countries that they come from. You would expect them to not just be voting right wing, but the hardest extremes of the right wing. But they don't. They don't. They come in, and I just found this image on Twitter, which kind of sums it up. Vote Labour, just a big group of Muslim men voting Labour because, well, Labour may not support their social...
Is that Naz Shah?
It might be, oh yeah, I think it is. But they may not...
Stay quiet for the sake of diversity, Harry.
Yes, I will. And also there's a token Baz, and the second from right, I've just noticed there. What's it? Is he like that guy from Four Lions?
Quite possibly, yeah.
Maybe he is.
But yeah, Muslims overwhelmingly vote Labour. It's something like 90% of the last election or something.
Well, the figures that I've got say 78% in the next link, but it's still overwhelmingly the highest percentage of them vote for Labour. And once again, with Labour supporting the kind of eco politics they do and the social politics they do with the LGBT stuff, you would expect them not to be supported. But
hi, fellow Labour voters. Can we talk about transgenderism?
Shall we talk about
they look very receptive to that, don't they?
Mashallah, brother.
Yeah. What about women's liberation?
Yeah, you wouldn't expect them to, but that's one of the things that the woke coalition does, is you get these political parties that have these gigantic contradictions, but then they just pay them off. Don't worry, we'll make sure that you keep voting for us, because what we'll do, we won't give you everything that you want, but we will make it illegal for people to criticize you. And
also,
say that
they like with Jess Phillips in Birmingham, they basically just will not do what the woke ones want. You know, can we teach your kids, woke transgenderism? They say no.
There you go.
Jess Phillips backs down. The school takes it out of their curriculum. And so the Muslim kids get to have a Muslim education, and our kids get to be brainwashed.
In the middle of England.
Yeah.
This is just what everybody wants.
Just what Alfred the Great fought for.
Exactly. And they'll do everything. And I think one of the other things they do is they just don't police these neighborhoods as well.
No.
Which is how you end up with the scandals that we've ended up with over the past few years. And just to say what I was talking about a moment ago. So, as I said, the vote from the last 2019 election, if I scroll down, most of them vote Labour. I'll get the details here. Our results show that 78% of Muslim voters opted for Labour in the 2019 general election. However, this drops to 38%. So this is where some of the phrases are starting to show. When asked about their voting habits, should a general election occur tomorrow, Keir Starmer's party are at risk of losing 55% of their regular Muslim vote. Now, it's important to point
look at that. In 2017, 87% voted Labour.
Absolutely.
That's wild.
Ridiculous. Now, this report from the muslimcensus.co.uk, which is a website that you wouldn't expect to have to exist for the UK, but does. Apparently, there's enough of them to have a census. Points out that there's only 4.4% of the population, but they do have a considerable impact on the political system. Now, this was from, if I scroll back up to the top of the article, I think this was from 2020, 2022. So figures will have changed since then, because what they're mainly talking about here is the fact that the Labour Party has not promised to keep making more and more things Islamophobic and therefore illegal. And so the Muslims may
Not voting for you then.
Yeah, well, I'm not. If you're not going to make it literally illegal to say anything negative about me, then I'm not going to vote for you. Now, this could mean that, perhaps they'll end up going over to Conservatives, at which point the Conservatives, being the good leftists they are, will make things even more illegal if they're considered Islamophobic. But the solution generally, no matter which side of the aisle these voters fall on, despite
the Conservatives will just make them judges.
Despite making them such a small percentage of the population, they do have considerable impact on the political system, which will mean that Conservatives and Labour will just start to offer them more benefits over and over again. In America, it's quite interesting as well that fully 2/3 of US Muslims identify with or lean toward the Democratic Party, 66%. Far fewer say they're Republican or lean Republican, which is 13%. So that's a massive disparity right there. Muslims are also far less likely than other Americans to describe themselves as ideological conservatives, probably because conservative means something very different in America as well.
But even then, why would they?
Yes.
We've just moved to this country. No, I'm not really a conservative.
Yeah. Just 1 in 5 Muslims, 21%, describe their political views as very conservative, compared with all conservative at all, compared with 36% of the public overall. Greater share of them describe themselves as politically moderate, which, as you mentioned, is probably just because, well, I've just got here.
Yeah.
I don't care. Who's offering me things?
But I mean,
who's going to give me free money?
If you were to actually ask them on a case-by-case basis, you'd be like, right, Republicans are in favor of women's rights. How do you feel about that, Mr. Ahmed? He's probably like, well, I'm not one of them.
What are the Democrats offering me? The same thing, but they'll give you free money.
But transgender, yeah.
Well, I guess I'm voting for them then.
Yeah.
Today, about half of the US Muslims say homosexuality should be accepted by society, which was 52%.
Only half.
I know, this is
like only half.
I mean, I was shocked when I saw that figure, but once again, this is back in 2017.
Yeah, but there's a self-selection bias, right? So if you're a sort of more moderate and progressive Muslim, you're living in some country, there's Sharia law, and you're sick of watching gays being executed by the state. You're like, right, I'm going to leave, I'm going to go to America. So you'd think that almost all of them would be in favor of Westernism in some way, but half of them are like, yeah, I'm not in favor of gays. It's like,
but you would imagine,
that's mad.
You'd imagine the selection bias, but there will also be the ones going, oh, they just give us free money.
Oh, yeah,
absolutely. Oh, well, great, I'll go over there then.
But it's just mental how half of them are just not in favor of it.
I mean, I was surprised when it was that many, to be perfectly honest. But yeah, these people, they'll come over for benefits, economic tourism, you could argue. And then we've covered, as I mentioned, that this is back in 2017. So things will have changed since then, because the woke agenda is ramped up and ramped up and ramped up and ramped up. And less attention has been brought towards persecuting people for being critical of Muslims in the West, as they are for criticizing people for being not in favor of the gay agenda, the LGBT stuff, especially being pushed on the kids. So things have been changing, specifically in Canada as well, which we covered going on in here, which was a few weeks ago. The Muslim Woke Alliance is over, where somehow the fraying ties of Christians and Muslims decided to put all of their differences aside for one joyful afternoon and team up so that they could scream, "Leave our kids alone."
Stop perverting children.
Yes, stop perverting our children in Canada. And if I go to this article as well, it has more information on such subjects, where it says an estimated 79% of eligible Muslim Canadians showed up to vote in 2015, nearly double the turnout from the previous federal election in 2011. The victorious Liberal Party was the clear beneficiary of this pilgrimage to the polls, winning the support of over 6 in 10 Muslim voters. Conversely, support for the Conservative Party among Muslims tumbled into low single digits, but the Conservative Party may finally be at the precipice of a long-desired rapprochement with Muslim Canadians. Just last week, a leaked audio recording of an Edmonton junior high school teacher berating a Muslim student, apparently for skipping class to avoid pride events, was leaked, and that's what led to that particular protest, because you start to hear recordings of insufferable woke feminists screeching at your children because they decided, I don't want to go into school so I can get brainwashed today because it was all the pride events on that day. Then you're going to show up and go, please stop doing that.
I don't like that. Demand that Muhammad accept the pronouns.
I don't think that's how they go with these things somehow. And then Trudeau showed up to do his typical thing, which is that this is all the right's fault.
Oh yeah. The Muslims were very progressive until the American right wing turned up.
Yeah, it's very shocking how he always does this. This is his one go-to trick that works every single time. Whenever anything goes wrong for his administration, is just turn around and say the right did it.
Yeah,
the right did it. The Muslims, like you say, they were all just happy in their progressive bubble until the right showed up and whispered in their ear, "I hate the gays. You should hate the gays too." And then they were just convinced. The video was released. It was filmed by what appeared to be somebody in some school meeting that Trudeau showed up to, strangely. Trudeau speaking with the Muslim community last week at a Calgary mosque, Baitan Nur Mosque, after hundreds of protesters railed against gender ideology in schools, chanting "Leave our kids alone." He went on to claim that right-wing forces were driving a wedge between the Muslim community. This is hurting the fabric of respect and openness that allows Canada to be one of the places where we support and defend the Muslim community more than just about any other Western Canadian. If you look at the various curriculums, there's not aggressive teaching or conversion of kids into being LGBT. That's something that's being weaponized, people of the far right who have consistently stood against Muslim rights, he said. But they are weaponizing the issue of LGBT, which is something that, yes, Islam has strong opinions on. I love how he's couching everything.
Yeah.
How timid he is.
Sorry, is this all a quote from him?
This is all a quote from him.
Okay, this is wild.
It's very awkward.
Yeah.
The same way that the religious right in Canada, the Christian right, has strong opinions against it as well.
Oh, that Canadian religious right.
Yeah, notorious.
Yeah.
They're using those fears to drive a wedge between the government that will always stand for all of your rights, just like I will always stand up for the rights of LGBT kids, including if they're LGBT Muslims. We're going to defend your rights, even when you disagree with us defending other people's rights. So that's an amazing quote.
This is an amazing quote, right? I just want to spend a few seconds on it, right? So there's not aggressive teaching or conversion of kids into being LGBT. Well, I disagree. I
disagree as well.
Yeah, I've heard enough of the videos where the teacher's literally berating them, saying, if you don't accept the pronouns, you're out, right? This being weaponized by people, yeah, okay, rightly so. The far right who have consistently stood against Muslim rights. What's a Muslim right? What rights do Muslims have that I don't have?
A right to colonize your country.
But even that, like, seriously though, like, what is a Muslim right meant to be, right? But and then the religious right in Canada, which is just marching through the streets, I'm sure. But then at the end of it, he gets into, look, I don't even care, Muslims. I don't care when you disagree with me. I'm standing up for your rights, even though you don't agree. So shut up and let me trans your kids.
Well, no, it's not even that. It's a complete admission at the end. Like, yeah, my politics make no sense.
Yeah.
Well, I'm completely insane. I'm going to support your rights to hate my rights, to defend rights that you hate. I have no consistency in my brain for anything that I'm talking about. But I'm in power right now. And this will continue to keep me in power as long as you keep voting for me. So I'll do literally, if you need me to get on my knees and beg right now, I will do that if it means that you vote for me. That's
his great strength, isn't it? Is that he's very good at speaking with purpose, despite the fact that he's got no purpose and no other agenda other than to look after himself, and very self-serving. At least narcissistic individual.
At least he didn't deliver the speech in blackface in Klaus Schwab WEF uniform.
Yeah.
Maybe, although I am surprised that in this particular image we've got up on screen right now, he's not bathed in evil red light like Joe Biden was that time.
I'm surprised at the end of it he didn't say, if you don't like any of that, it's fine, I'll just freeze your bank accounts.
Yeah. Well, he wouldn't do that because these are voters he actually cares about.
Yeah, good point.
They do need to stop getting photos of leftist politicians like this, though, because, yes, as much as it makes them look like evil dictators, it also makes them look far more cool and powerful and strong than they actually are.
I guess.
I mean, just stop doing that. Get them when they're slumped, when they're hunching over, when they've got a little bit of dribble coming down from the mouth. It can't be that hard with Joe Biden to get one of like that. And if you want the footage, it's there. Like you can see, if it just goes here a little bit a bit forward after this woman announces it. It's just him, just basically leaning in, whispering to these people. This is what. Yeah, there he is, just saying, "Oh, here's my nonsense politics. I'm just going to explain all of my nonsense politics to you. I would never say this on stage, but yes, I make no sense whatsoever." And what he's talking about, where you were saying, well, these people obviously are aggressively pushing this agenda in schools every single day. It seems that more and more there are clips coming out of people filming themselves or recording themselves being berated by teachers because every single time they have the LGBT Pride Days and such, what happens is all of the Muslim students, in this case, 600 out of this school, which was in a Northwood Public School in Ontario, Windsor, 600 of the school's 800 students stayed home. So what is that? A full 3/4 of the students stayed home because they didn't want to get berated with all of this rubbish for an entire day. And then you get recordings like this where the teacher, if we scroll down through some of the choice quotes here, says, "I do not want to be part of this school. I'm so disgusted by what happened yesterday."
Well, hang on a second. You're saying you're disgusted with Muslims and Islam?
Yes.
Like, that's what you're saying?
Incredible admission.
Like, the Muslims are like, look, we can't go to the LGBTQ Pride because literally we'll burn in hell. So our religious convictions make us stay home. You're like, that is just disgusting. How dare you?
Yep. The teacher also told the class her colleagues opted to plaster LGBTQ rainbows all over the school in response to significant abstentions on Pride Day. All the rainbows, this is the quote, all the rainbows you see around the school was because very few people came yesterday. And the teachers are angry.
Oh, that'll make them want to come back.
So in spite of the teenagers, just to spite the teenagers,
the Muslim teenagers, you have decided to put up lots of rainbows around your school. The teachers are the children in this situation. These teachers have the emotional maturity of a spoilt toddler.
Why is it not enough for these people just to do their jobs? Why do they have to bring their own agenda into the classroom like this?
They consider pushing the agenda to be their job. They consider the idea that they
are literally paid
form people's minds. They want to manipulate. They don't see it as manipulating, but they want to manipulate people's minds into this way of thinking. That is their job from where they see it.
Oh, they're literally inches away from calling these Muslims heretics, aren't they?
You heathens!
Yeah.
You heathen bastards! And then, according to this, a June 20th apology letter was sent to all of the families by the principal because he's like, "We're sorry we called you. We're sorry you called the children apostates. That was wrong."
There are worse insults.
And in the
I'm sure, but I wouldn't want to dare name them on here.
Yeah.
But in the meantime, all the kids are leaving that school innumerate and illiterate.
Yeah, presumably so.
Yeah.
But at least they get to keep their culture and their heritage and their family lives intact. So that's nice. So the Woke Coalition, as always, is just fraying at the seams, just about to fall apart. The only question I have is what's going to happen afterwards. And I can only hope that the Conservatives all across the West don't all decide to turn around and go, well, we can just do what you did better.
If you appreciated that segment from the podcast of the Lotus Eaters, you can go to lotuseaters.com to get access to all the premium content that's on the site, such as the premium articles, this one on Jonah Hill and why men can't marry mermaids, with an audio track for Silver Tears. If you'd like to find out what else being put out, you can follow on Getter at lotuseaters_com on Getter. Thank you and goodbye.